The latest on the Texas school shooting, the debate over gun control intensifying across the country as a bipartisan group of senators are pushing to come to an agreement on proposed gun violence prevention measures. All of this happening as the Texas Department of Public Safety says it's cooperating with the ongoing investigation, while school police chief Pete Arredondo has not responded for days to a request for a follow-up interview. For more on this, ABC's Alex Presha joining me now from our nation's capital, as well as ABC News senior investigative correspondent Aaron Katersky. Good to see you both. Alex, let's start with you. Those bipartisan proposals now that are being considered, what's the likelihood that Dems will be able to get support from 10 Republicans?
Well, Kira, look, they have said that there have been progress made and that these talks have been constructive. The talks that began last Thursday, before this recess started. They've continued over the weekend and now again scheduled to happen, some happening today as well as also later on in this week. But again, Kira, these are just talks. But we know that some of the things that have been floated out there, whether they be red flag laws or expanded background checks on commercial sales, are things that we've heard floated before. We've heard folks talk about maybe raising the age range on certain gun purchases, possibly also expanding some of the mental health services involved with gun sales. But one thing that we know has been a non-starter and will be key in getting enough support from Republicans in this, that assault weapons ban. Senator Chris Murphy saying that while he does support it, while a lot of Democrats support it, he doesn't think that it would have the necessary Republican support if that was a part of that legislation. So I would suspect that anything that came out of this group of 9 senators, the 5 Democrats and 5 Republicans, would exclude an assault weapons ban.
All right, so Aaron, let's talk about now the Department of Public Safety's investigation with regard to what happened in Uvalde. There's a bit of a back and forth now between DPS and Uvalde authorities on what exactly happened. A number of stories are changing. What do we know?
Well, at the moment, there is a question about cooperation, and the questions have been raised. The Department of Public Safety, which is running the state investigation, says that both the Uvalde City Police Department and the Uvalde Independent School District Police Force have both been cooperative. But the chief of the school police force, Pete Arredondo, has not responded to a request for a follow-up interview in days. And that is a source of frustration, clearly, to state investigators as they try to probe not only the massacre itself, but also the law enforcement response. We heard a bit ago from the school district, which employs Chief Arredondo, saying that the district is continuing to cooperate with law enforcement, but will not comment until that investigation is complete.
All right, we'll talk more about Arredondo in just a second, but I do want to ask you, Aaron, about law enforcement officials once again changing their story on how that gunman actually entered the school. Now, what we're hearing, they're saying that it's not the fault of that teacher who they previously said left a door propped open, that teacher has now hired a lawyer. So how could this all play out, and what do we know?
Kira, this is a significant revision to the narrative that we had heard on Friday when the head of the Texas Department of Public Safety, Colonel Stephen McGraw, said that a teacher had propped open the door, suggesting that that teacher allowed the shooter to enter the building unobstructed. The teacher hired a lawyer to say, wait a minute, there's video of this teacher shutting the door behind her. It's just that the door did not lock. And now the Texas Department of Public Safety says the teacher's account is correct. She did close the door behind her after propping it open for a time. It just didn't lock as it was supposed to. So now the question is, why didn't it lock? But it is yet another factual point in this entire story that has changed. The Texas Department of Public Safety did not explain why McGraw made the statement that he did on Friday, only to have it corrected now by the attorney, and so you wonder, what else may change as the investigation goes on.
Well, talk about legislation, changes in legislation, Alex. Just thinking about the deadly shooting at Marjorie Stoneman Douglas in Parkland, Florida, there was that bill that was passed, which provided hundreds of millions of dollars for mental health resources, school safety. Also, it raised the minimum age to purchase a firearm to 21. It created a 3-day waiting period on firearm purchases, among a number of other things. Now, lawmakers, are they taking this into consideration, what was done in Florida? And could we see the same type of changes at the state level in Texas?
Well, Kira, what we're seeing is that as lawmakers here on Capitol Hill try to cobble up some type of legislation, a lot of states have taken action on their own in either drafting or pushing ahead on legislation that would change gun policies. Notably, New York State, which just a week before this Uvalde shooting had their own tragic shooting at a Buffalo area supermarket. Well, lawmakers there have pushed through legislation over the weekend, which would increase the minimum age to buy one of those semi-automatic rifles to 21 years old, increasing it from 18 years. They would also tighten gun laws. They would ban the purchase of bullet-resistant vests by civilians and require that pistols be enabled with something called a micro-stamping technology. And that bill is expected to go to Governor Kathy Hochul by the week's end. But also, Kira, I mean, this is something that's playing out along party lines, because we've also seen in states where we know gun rights advocates have a lot of momentum, places like Texas, even following this shooting. Senators Ted Cruz and also Senator John Cornyn have had a spike in donations. So certainly there have been states that have enacted on their own, but we're also seeing people not just vote with their actual vote, but vote with their dollars, but putting money behind folks that are also very 2A.
Got it. And one more question, Aaron, in light of a quick interview that was seen on CNN. You know, the Uvalde ISD chief that you just mentioned, Pete Arredondo, was officially sworn in as a city council member yesterday. There was talk that was going to be on hold. Looks like it's not, because the mayor confirmed in a statement, indeed, that happened. And it comes just hours after DPS said that, as you mentioned, he's not responding to a request for a follow-up interview. Yet he was cornered by a reporter, and it was all over CNN this morning and has sort of been spreading. He said, I've been talking to DPS every day. I've been talking to DPS every day. And he just kept repeating himself. So what's the deal?
Well, it's another discrepancy in the story that involves state officials and local officials as we try to understand what happened. Arredondo, the state police have blamed for what they've called a wrong decision not to send police officers into the classroom, thinking that perhaps the suspect was contained and that the shooter no longer posed a risk to children. But Kira, only focusing on that police response, I think might be limiting, because after the trigger is pulled, it's already a failing. And there are still questions why the door didn't lock, whether the school was properly put on lockdown, never mind the entire history of the suspect to include truancy and violence and animal abuse and all of the other red flags that, had they been put together, might have led to a different outcome here. So the investigation is still in its early stages. We're all anxious for answers, most importantly to see what could have been done that may have changed the outcome here.
That's what we all want to know. Alex, Aaron, thanks guys so much.
Hi everyone, George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel, and don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts. Thanks for watching.